ladies and gentlemen, back-to-back years, we get a blockbuster offensive coordinator hire. And this year, Washington hires former Arizona Cardinals head coach, former Texas Tech and USC OC, Cliff Kingsbury. He will be our offensive coordinator. And Will, I'm gonna ask you this, but first I want to get Ben's comment in here, who basically said it's not so much Quinn, but it'll be how Cliff does with the offense and the quarterback that he'll work with in December that will determine where the Commanders go for the next 2 years. Do you agree with that comment? And what could Cliff do for us, man?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think without a doubt, Cliff Kingsbury is a big-time hire. And they said if you're a defensive coach, it's going to be the biggest concern is who are you going to bring in on offense. And it seems like they hit a home run on this one. They at least got a very, very big name to come here. And it is going to be on Cliff now, because if we do draft a quarterback, or even if I'm just going to say it, when we draft a quarterback, it's going to be on him to develop a franchise guy. We're drafting someone at number 2. That's a huge deal. But I still think it's going to be Quinn's leadership, and I think it's going to be a little bit more about having to recognize what did he do well with Kyle Shanahan as his OC, who was another young offensive coordinator with who really had control over the situation, versus what would he do differently. I'll let you chat on it, especially with Scott sending us stuff to throw us off our game, and then I'll come back to me with some thoughts on Cliff and Joe.
Honestly, like I said about the relationship, I love that he was able to bring Cliff over and surface value. I mean, we see the type of guys this guy has worked with. You know what I mean? With the Matt Ryan when he was elite, obviously Caleb, obviously going back to Patrick Mahomes in college, he's had these different type of quarterbacks. And then all of a sudden, you and I talked about it, we can start to envision what is the characteristics of quarterback we might be looking at. And we'll talk about that, later on down the line as far as who we're drafting and things like that. But it brings an excitement to just the whole organization, because the caliber this guy has been with, so he has an eye for it. Now, on top of that, you got Quinn, who's in charge, and for all intents and purposes, I don't know. I mean, we know with Ron Rivera, Ron was the guy, and even though EB was there, Ron was going to put in his 2 cents. Ron still had the control. I wonder how Cliff will be treated in this. Is it, I'm a defensive coach with Dan Quinn, you take care of that offense, you do what you got to do, or will I'm about to say Ron, will Dan Quinn be a micromanager, kind of how Ron was? But I think if Cliff is able to kind of have free reign and get some of the guys that he likes, I think it can be only positive. I mean, right? Like, this is a big move for us.
This is a huge move. And I think he's coming in there with the idea that this is going to be your offense to go with, because, it's one of the things, the reason why it's such a huge move is what Nathan's saying. What do we have on the offensive line? Right. Tell me, whenever would we attract a caliber of coach like a Cliff Kingsbury, with his track record of being a head coach, of having a good offense in Arizona, of teaching a rookie quarterback and putting up good numbers and winning 11 games with Kyler Murray, and then being a sought-after assistant at Southern Cal? That's not the guy that comes to Washington. Dan Snyder could only attract those guys in the beginning when he threw a lot of money at them. And then after that, nobody wanted to come to Washington. Why do you think we had to hire Jim Zorn so many years ago? Because nobody wanted the job.
Right.
Where he did, he's like, you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a good offensive line, I'm in. So I think that really shows that the belief and trust he has in Dan Quinn to say, listen, it's going to be my offense that I can come over and figure out. And also knowing that there's resources and an ownership that's going to support. And so it's like they're going to build this team up together. So I think it's a huge deal to get a Cliff Kingsbury. And I'm very excited to see his air raid and what he wants to bring in as an offensive coordinator. Because just remember, he's also having to rehab his image. I'm sure he wants to be a head coach again. Well, this is his chance to show that he can lead an offense, which can give him a chance to lead a team again.
Exactly. And that to me is exciting. You talk about the air raid. Oh man, Talk about me in college football when I'm playing air raid all day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my favorite part about that is one of the things he says, and I think you showed this to me, how he incorporates the run and how he's able to kind of use the run game in that. And for me, that's something that whoever we have at quarterback, we need to establish that. We have to have that run game. Yes, to your point, Nathan, it does start with an O-line. We definitely need that. But at the same time, I want his offense to take over. Obviously, we're going to stretch the field, but let's also create some of those gaps. One of the things I know they were talking about is that the gaps, our Logan Paulson was saying, the gaps on the O-line, spreading the defense out while also, trying to make the best of each of those holes and things like that. I as a running back, hearing somebody that's a air raid, obviously it's like, oh my goodness, Mike Leach, we're just pass, 99% pass. But Cliff seems to enjoy running the ball. We've seen how, the running game he was able to put together in Arizona. And even to Texas Tech, they had a little semblance of a running game back when, with Patrick Mahomes. But I'm very excited about this. Let's flip over to the defense on a name that might not be as well known.
Right.
Joe Witt Jr., who was he assisted Dan Quinn when he got Dallas on defense, right?
Yeah, he was with the DBs.
Yeah. And now he will be our defensive coordinator. This is his first defensive coordinator position. I'm excited about that. African-American guy, Black History Month. Congrats, my dude. Love that. But talk to me, because outside of the fact that he worked with the cornerbacks, which is absolutely something we need to specialize on, what is it about Joe Witt Jr. that I should even, why am I not saying who is this guy? What is it about him that we should be excited about?
Sure. You can be saying who is this guy, but the reason why I think you should believe in this guy is he's been with Dan Quinn at multiple stops. Yeah. So if Dan Quinn, who just came off having a really good defense in the last couple of years and rehabbed his image in Dallas, is willing to turn over the reins of his team now in Washington to Joe Witt Jr., it's got to be someone that he trusts. And he's been with him in Seattle. He was with him in Atlanta. He came with him to Dallas. So this is somebody that Dan Quinn believes in and is willing to turn over the keys and say, I know he knows what my vision, he knows what I want done. He can implement it as well. So I can also focus on other things. So I think that's the big part about it. Leadership is what Nathan's saying. I go with trust, and then I go look at the Dallas Cowboys. Who is Deron Bland?
Yeah.
Trayvon Diggs was not drafted, expected to be the next. Who's that? Darrelle Revis. Yeah. He was never drafted to be that guy, and he turned into that guy. Well, there's got to be some good scheme and some good coaching going on there. So that got me excited. Plus, let's not take away from the fact that not only did we take Dallas's defensive coordinator, which was the best part of their team, we took his right-hand man with us too.
Let's go.
So they couldn't just promote that guy either and just have some continuity. Now Dallas has to come in with a new defensive coordinator and a new scheme. They didn't just get to keep things going. So that's a reason to be excited about this as well.
Oh yeah. Shout out to Ab. Trust is a very good word, Will. Absolutely. And look, and my theme of the day is going to be relationships, because Dan Quinn brought his guy Joe Witt Jr. And we already know there was somebody, number 11, that was saying, hey, look, I might just go with my coach. And Penn State buddy Jahan Dotson said, come on, brother. Come on. But with this, and truthfully and honestly, with Joe Witt Jr. coming, we talked about relationships. He came with Dan Quinn. I know we're talking coaches, but what are the chances that a number of these guys from that Dallas defense potentially come? Is it a good chance? Maybe not Micah Parsons, but you talked about a number of guys that go with him. I think Dante Fowler Jr. and some of these other dudes. Should we expect them to come?
It would not surprise me if we get a couple Cowboy defensive players. There were rumors in early January that said, that basically said, guys like Jordan Lewis, like Curse is a safety, Dante Fowler. I think they've even got a D lineman that really believe in Dan Quinn. They're DQ guys. I think one of them has even bounced through a couple different teams with Dan Quinn. So it may not surprise me if we sign a couple. Plus, let's think about it. If you're implementing a certain scheme, would you not want to have a couple guys who know it very well to be those on-field coaches? I mean, Ron did that his very first year when he brought in Thomas Davis, who was not fast enough to be a starter anymore, but he was there to help teach, training camp, a little bit on the field, be a locker room leader, that type of stuff. But honestly, we may get a couple Cowboys that come in here to help us out. But honestly, I think you're going to see from the other coaching staff that they got and everything that people are just going to want to come here to be coached by good coaches. So right. Yes, we could get a few, but I don't know. I don't think you're going to see this huge exodus from Dallas to Washington.
Right. And to follow it up, I think Nate asked a great question, but are they going to be impact players for us? And with the exception of if, God forbid, we get, Micah Parsons or Trayvon Diggs or some of that type of caliber, how do we know these guys aren't just random regular guys? And it's great that they follow, but I want to go back to something I was talking to Ab this week. And one of the things matter of fact, I think he was talking to you about, you bring in these guys and we're hoping they're all good and all and that stuff. But I mean, things might be different. The situation might be different. We don't know how they are in our scheme. And let's be honest. Yes, we've got all this new coaching chains and new owners and everything. But I mean, I don't think they've changed how FedEx is or any of those F grades that we got yet. Sure. It's coming. So to go from Jerry's world to that is a major drop off on the off the field type stuff. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of other things that might play into it, but it is definitely an exciting thing. I want to shout out Eric. No, we are not saying we like the Cowboys. Okay.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, I like their defense. Yeah.
Right.
I like the way their defense played. I'll take a couple of those guys.
But to that point, and this is what one of the things Ab was saying was that when Ron came, what did he do? Yeah, he talked about Thomas Davis, the Commanders, right? We know the defense was good for Dallas, but are we going to be the Washington Cowboys? Like, are we going to just be bringing Cowboys guys in? And is that the right move? Like, I know it's football, and they don't care about the jersey, and they don't have that fire and passion like we do, and it's just business. But still, like, he might have got everything he can get out of them when he was in Dallas. Leave that be.
Right. I mean, it's complete hypothetical. I don't think it would hurt to have one or two guys on his team. If you're talking about, Nathan's asking, are they really going to be impactful players? Well, some of them might because we have holes. I mean, we need defensive linemen. We need two starting defensive edge. So Dante Fowler can come and be a starter here. Yep. We need some corners. Or we need to figure out what's going on with our corner so Jordan Lewis could come in here and start. So maybe they can be impactful in that way. And I would not want to have a ton of them. I don't need a huge exodus, that type of stuff. But I would say if it's going to be a similar defense, it really wouldn't hurt to have one or two to help out.
Right. And like you said, the familiarity is always a good thing. So, hey, we'll see what Joe Witt Jr. does and Cliff Kingsbury. Obviously, this is a long ways away from Eric Bieniemy and Jack Del Rio. Really quick, and we don't have to spend that much time here. I've talked to you about this before, and I actually had my brother-in-law hit me up about this. He was like, a year ago, EB, he was your guy. You signed him to a 2-year deal, assistant coach. Everybody's saying he's the next up. And then I get a new regime comes, they want their guy, but we kind of just wiped our hands with EB and didn't even really say it. I mean, it kind of came out on social media that we're going a different direction, and it kind of gave me those Kirk Cousins vibes, like how we did him. I know everything is different, a different regime and all that, but that move seems eerily similar, Will.
I think it was. So Dan Quinn announced it in the press conference where he said, yes, I've got a lot of respect for him, but I've let him know that he will not be a part of this coaching staff. Yeah, I mean, to me, I don't think you're going to get a Cliff Kingsbury if you've got EB around. What is EB's role going to be? And basically, Dan Quinn saying, "I want to turn over this to somebody else." Hey, let me say this. He says, "I hired Kyle just like I hired Cliff because I went up against their offense and said they're really tough to go up against." You think Dan Quinn felt that same way about EB last year? No. So if he respects Cliff's offenses, that's what he wants to be going after. So I don't know. I think it's basically just the idea of, let me bring in my own guys. They've kept a couple coaches on offense from that staff, from the commander staff from last year. But I think it's more about, I want a clean slate, bring in my old guys, and let Cliff have a say in some of who he wants on staff too.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.